All right, we're back. Another episode of Lemons to Lemonade, and I have my good friend Oscar
Avila.
Avila.
Yes, sir.
See, I always butcher the last names, like just mad. So Oscar and I met each other. Oscar works at Wells Fargo. He helps me with a lot of my banking stuff, and I've gotten to know Oscar over the years and gotten to know his story. And I asked him to come on because he's a very interesting life path, and I think that it's really remarkable that someone can start in one place and end in a completely different place just
absolutely.
because they've decided to make life choices and perspectives changes and priorities change. And I think a lot of people are going through that right now. Right. Like we're in a time in our world and in our society where people are being forced to make pivots, and they're being forced to reevaluate what's going on in their own lives and what they want to do with the rest of their lives. And you kind of went through that. And I want to let you kind of tell the story, but you started running a nightclub and now you're a pastor. And it was a transition through understanding what was important and what you couldn't do being, running a nightclub and what you needed to do for your family and what brought you here. So I just want to kind of, what's the backstory?
Well, Dan, first of all, thank you so much. It is an honor to be here with you this morning. I love you, man. I love what you do. I love what you're doing for the community. Your law firm is awesome. And, one of the things about working in the bank, especially in my job, is I get to meet people like you, who are successful, but it took, some hard work to get there. People don't understand that about success. They think that it's one day to another, but even learning about your story, like it took hard work.
You know what's funny about that? Like that you say that is my whole office gives me so much shit for going into the bank. They're like, it's 2020. Why don't you use online banking? And I'm like, I have friends that work at the bank. I always get to talk to people and meet people, and there's so many good connections. Like it's just funny because if I was online banking,
you wouldn't be able to do any of it.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, man. So, so thank you for coming into the bank, right?
Of course.
But, my story is interesting, man. I started, I'm married. I'm married to my beautiful wife, and I have 5 kids. So that's, my oldest is 18. My youngest is 2. So my story is kind of interesting. For some reason, no matter what I did in my life, I ended up in a nightclub. So from the moment that I was 17 years old, I went to visit my cousin in Mexico, and he knew a guy that owned a club, and I was 17 years old working at a nightclub. For some reason, that was my life. But through that journey, when you were in the nightclub, when you're in the industry, there's nothing wrong with the industry, right? Some of my most wonderful friends are part of the industry.
I got my start.
So, but it takes a lot of you, especially when you have a family. When you have to tell your wife that, hey, I got to go to work at the nightclub, she doesn't take it so lightly.
You get home at 4 a.m.
4 a.m., sometimes 6 a.m. And you know how it is. So it was always, that was always the issue. So for me, in my life story, that cost me my family. So it came to a point where my wife was like either the club or the family. So when she told me that, I was
how old were you? Like what age?
I want to say in my late 20s. In my late 20s. So
you'd grinded through it for 12 years or so.
Yeah. And I was actually working, I was working at Union Bank. So I was doing both. And then after that, when I went to Wells Fargo, I still did the nightclub and I did the bank. So for me, it was grind. So I never really sat back and thought, okay, well, the kids or the wife, it was just like, as long as I bring the money, everything is cool. But I learned through the years that's not true. You know what I mean? The most important thing is the time that you give your family, the time that you give your kids. But I guess growing up, my parents were the same way, where they just grinded. So I did the same thing. As long as I put money on the table, as long as you got nice clothes, as long as you have a nice car, you're good.
You're doing your job.
I'm doing my job as an individual, as a father, as a husband. So I never really, took time to really evaluate, am I really being a good dad? Because the way my mom and my dad were with me is, if the money was there, they did a good job. So it kind of fell in the same way with me.
100%.
So through the journey, as I lost my wife, we went through a separation. I got myself into a deeper hole, which was girls, money, cars. And I kept losing myself even further.
The normal distractions that are there in the industry nightlife. Like I was there for 9 years. Like that.
Absolutely.
That's part of it.
And you know how it is. You know everybody treats you good. You do. You don't have to wait in line.
It's a community.
It's like it's a family of its own. And it's awesome. to this day, I mean, I remember the Hard Rock days, when, the Intervention days when it first started, the Stingery days, the Albergine days.
Yep.
I mean, I'm talking about on Broadway.
Yep.
And people don't know about on Broadway, but man, it was cracking. San Diego was at another level. But my story changed. I've always had an interest for God, and I've always had an interest to learn about it. I'm the kind of guy that you can't tell me about it. I have to read about it. I want to study it. Yep. So I went into it and I studied it, and it's something that really interested me, right? This God that is the creator of the universe, that lives inside of you. So I wanted to know, okay, if you live inside of me, what does that mean? So I went further and further and further into, a lot of people trip out on this story, but for me, 3 years ago, I was still doing the club, and I was still doing the bank.
Yep.
And, I was going through my divorce and everything like that. And, you had the girls, the money. I was living the dream. I was a bachelor.
Yep.
I was in my room, man, and I'm telling you, I heard something in my head, a voice tell me, so this is your life? So this is it, right? And at first I was like, oh my gosh, am I tripping right now? Am I drunk or what, right? But then I heard the voice again, and it said, so this is your life. This is what you want. And I, for some reason, I felt really emotional, started crying. And I felt like God was telling me, I called you for more. Why are you settling for this? Right? Settling in a way where my family, giving away my family for that.
So I got goosebumps right now, and I got to stop you. And the only reason why is because 2 days ago, and I don't know if you saw, Major Williams was in town. Major's running for, governor of California. Yeah. And he told me this exact same thing, man. This exact same thing. He told me a story. He was like, I woke up when I was in the middle of a nightclub in Beverly Hills, and all of a sudden I'm in the middle of this nightclub, and I got a drink in my hand. I just realized I spent my last $20 on the valet out front. And he's like, and everything slowed down. Everything in the nightclub slowed down.
Yeah.
And he's like, and it's a nightclub I've been in over and over again. But he was like, I just remember sitting there going, is this my life?
Yeah.
Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this where I'm supposed to be? Yeah. And he was like, and that day, everything shifted. That's crazy. Because he told me the story 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And it stopped me in my tracks.
No, and that's what it is. A lot of people think that, God's going to communicate with you with this loud roar, but he communicates to you in private. He communicates to you in your ear. He's a big God, but he speaks to his kids in a soft voice. And that's what he did to me. And once I did that, I was scrolling through my phone, and there was a church that I've gone to before, but I was never a part of. And then I heard it again saying, that's for you. And I said, what? I remember I DM'd that pastor that day. It was like midnight, and I DM'd the pastor, and I go, hey man, whatever you're doing, I love it, man. So he invited me on. And at first when he said, come help me with the church, I was like, man, I can't help you, man. I'm from the nightclub. I'm a dog. But he's like, it's okay. You can help me. So I did it, and it changed my life, man. It changed my life because trying to be a pastor or anything. A pastor is just a title. Yeah. But the most important thing is the way that you love people.
Yep.
And the way that you encourage people. Yep. One of the biggest things that I see even going on now is that what people need is someone to believe in them, for someone to encourage them, and that's what being a pastor is. Yeah. It's not about, oh my gosh, I'm in this big church. No, it's about the intimate relationship that you have with somebody. It's actually believing in them, actually taking time to listen to them. And that's what I've learned, even from God, where it's like sometimes you have to stay still and listen. So through that journey, after, I've decided to change my life, and I gave it all up, girls, everything. I went and I fought for my marriage. It took me 2 years to win my girl back. It was the craziest 2 years. My son is here. He can testify to that, but I stayed strong.
You were determined.
I was determined to change the legacy of what I want my kids to know about their dad. I was determined to create a legacy, because that is the most important thing. When the time comes that your number is called, I want my kids to say, my dad was there, but now he was here. And that's the most important thing for me. And that's when, as soon as I heard God's voice, I didn't take it lightly. I said, okay.
So you kind of pivoted on a switch of a flip.
Yeah.
Flipped that and went.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. At first I didn't feel qualified. I was like, man, it's like if somebody says, be the CEO of Wells Fargo, don't know what to do. Like, but God said, it's okay. Like, it's not you, it's me anyways. So do it. So what I did is, I used the same skills I did in the nightclub. I did it for church, for God. So I went and I reached out to a bunch of people, I invited a bunch of people, and I invited them to a journey. God's a gentleman. God will never force himself on anyone. God will knock on your door, and it's up to you to listen to what he has to say. You know what I mean?
How funny is that though, that like the unique skill sets that you developed in an industry that a lot of people, maybe would say is godless, or it's not a church environment, the industry life, right? But you were able to fine tune unique gifts and characteristics and then bring them in service.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty crazy, like life secular stuff right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that goes to a lot of things, that where you are does not dictate where you will be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that sometimes, you're in certain areas of your life for a reason. It's a season for you to grow. It's a season for you to mold your character. It's not where you start, is where you end up, like you said, that matters, and how you're going to finish. You know what I mean? And that's what happened to me. It's funny because you probably know all the same people that I know, and most of them, like the people from Oxford, the people from Park, they see what I'm doing for church and they DM me and they're like, bro, well, you're crazy.
Yeah.
But it's like, in some people, it actually touches some people, because you know what? No matter who you are in life, no matter your position, no matter where you're at in your life, somebody somewhere needs a spiritual encounter. Yeah. And I believe even with everything going on with the coronavirus, and I know you and I talked a little bit with the government, with the businesses, everybody needs a spiritual touch, man. Yeah. Everybody needs to understand that it's okay to pray. Yeah. It's okay to seek a spiritual in you. Man, this country needs a spiritual shaking.
So let me ask you this, because obviously there's people there's Christians, there's Buddhists, there's different religions, right? Yeah. So what's your take on that? Now, now that you are a pastor, like you are in the religious sphere, if you will. What's your take on different religious beliefs? And because the way I've always looked at it is the way you live, your spiritual energy, how you treat other people is how you're going to be judged at the end of the day. And I've never been able to really look at it like Christianity is more right than Buddhism, which is more right than Islam, because it's dictated on where you were born, the influences in your life. But for me, it just solely comes back to how you treat other people, the energy you live your life, the ethics you live your life when no one's watching. Mm-hmm. That to me is how I like it. How do you see it?
So, number one is you always want to respect somebody else's beliefs. Yeah. You know what I mean? I believe in Jesus. I believe that Jesus came to this earth, and I don't think Jesus came to interrupt what people thought, or we all have different cultures. Yep. But you have to respect what other people believe. However, if it's something that interests you individually, then study it. Yeah, study it and understand it. Yep. A lot of times, what a church or certain Christian environments might say, well, that's wrong. Yep. Well, first of all, we're not here to tell you that we're wrong. We're here to teach you how to love. Yep. The two greatest commandments is love God above everything else, and then love people. Because if you can't love people, how are you going to love a God that you don't see? That's impossible. Yep. So what I do is, I will never, ever criticize or put down somebody else because of what I believe. Yep. Because everybody has different beliefs. But if that person shows interest and they say, okay, well, I want to learn about this Jesus, or I want to learn about this God, then I'll be more than happy to sit with you and share with you you know what I mean? And that's how you're not going to win somebody over by, hey man, what you're doing is wrong. That's going to push people away. I agree. But let me show you how I live. For example, like I feel you, like you're a kind of guy that I want to be around. Why? Because I see the way you love people. I see the way you interact with people. Even though you're a very successful guy, you're always down to earth. You're always down to talk. People look at the office. They don't even want you to go to the bank, but you want to be around people, and that's awesome. Same thing with God, man. Like we want to show people what God is. We don't want to. It's not shove it down your throat. And if you don't believe what I believe, then you're out. That's not true. Yeah. That's not true.
You let people find it.
Absolutely. Yep. Like I mentioned to you before, God's a gentleman. Yep. He knocks. Yep. And it's up to you to receive.
I really like how you put that.
Yeah. He's and this is kind of like a spiritual thing, but the devil possesses you, right? but God knocks on your door. He's a gentleman. He wants to know, do you want a relationship with me? Then I'll come knock.
Yep.
You know? So that's the difference. And everybody has their own perspective on religion and God like that. But I'll tell you this, man, I lived it myself. I was a witness to it. I heard it. My marriage came back together. My kids are in a different place. So I think what makes God more real than anything else is what you lived and what you saw. Yep. So for me, because of what he did for me, is why I'm so passionate about what I do.
It's your truth.
It's my truth.
Yep.
And I can't tell you about your truth, but I'll tell you my truth. Yep. And if he did it for me, he'll do it for you. But however, you have to be able to want to learn. If you don't want to learn, then do you? You know what I mean? But that's what happened to me. And
how is it? And I ask this because my mom always tells me, my mom's super religious, super Christian. She goes, it's easy for people to say they don't need God in the good times, but in the hard times, that's when it comes into play. And that's when you need to have that spiritual faith. And obviously, we're all going through hard times right now. You just lost your father. Yes. Now that you are in the place that you're in, how is that? Because that's hard. Like losing anyone is hard. Losing a parent has to be one of the hardest things you'll go through. Yeah. So how did your faith, where you're at in life help you through that? You know what, man? To be honest with you, my dad's death really got to me more than I've shared with people, because him and my mom divorced at a young age, so we didn't really have a relationship because of we're far away, and he started a new family, so it was tough. But seeing him in his deathbed, man, really got to me, because I wish we had more time, and because I know how special it is when I have a conversation with my son, or when my son has a conversation with me, and he didn't get to have that. Yep. So what I told my dad in his deathbed was, because he asked, do you forgive me? I said, of course I forgive you, man. I don't have nothing against you, man. I love you. And I said, right now, what I want you to do is get ready for your next journey, because this ain't over for you. So, we prayed together, we prayed for the family, but it did affect me, man, because, there's nothing more beautiful than when your dad speaks to you, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? When he takes his time to really get to know you, and unfortunately, it didn't happen because him and my mom separated, but that's something that we crave as humans, man. We need a father figure, somebody that's going to, speak into us and love on us. And that's something I didn't have. And what's crazy is, I feel like it was happening to me. So I made sure that I changed it and spoken to my kids, because that's the legacy. Which is the truth. Yeah. And that's always been something I've struggled with, right? Yeah. So I've had issues, with my father and things like that. And I've always thought maybe I'm not supposed to have kids, right? Like, because I wouldn't want to repeat same mistakes. I just, I see a lot of the same tendencies, and I'm like, maybe that's just not the path for me, right? But I think that you're right. Like it can be pivoted. We can all change that legacy. We can all change that if that's what we want. Yeah. And it's up to you. Yeah. Either you're going to do something about it, or you're just going to not do whatever. Yeah. But I realize now in my older age, I mean, I'm not that old, but I'm older. I'm 40 years old. His legacy is everything, man, for your children. And you have to be able to teach them. You have to be able to guard them. And sometimes it's harder to have conversations with your kids. My daughter's 16 and a half, pretty girl. And it's hard to have the boy conversations with her, man. What do I say? I mean, I can't imagine. I worked at the club. I know how I'd be like Will Smith in Bad Boys, like coming with the shotgun to the door. Yeah, it's tough, man. And having conversations with my son, but it's nothing's more beautiful than that, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like even for you, whatever relationship you have with your dad, if he's still here, that means that there's still a chance to fix it. There's still a chance to love on him. And sometimes dads can be tough or whatever, but they want love too, man. Yeah. They want a hug. They want you to surprise them with a coffee. I don't know. Yeah. You know what I mean? But that's my journey, man. And I wouldn't change anything. Even when from the toughest moments to the biggest storms, I wouldn't change it, because that developed me. Something that's crazy is even like all my coworkers come to church. So I love that. You're talking about like different attitudes, different characters, and everybody needs a spiritual touch, man. Whatever it is that you do, you need a spiritual touch. before we end, tell people about your church, tell people where they can find you.
Absolutely. So
a lot of people, that's why we do this. Like the only reason I do this podcast, it's nothing about my business or anything. I think people need perspective, right? And my hope is that each one of these podcasts, one person watches it and goes, shit, that got me, right? That pushed me in a better direction. And that's my whole goal with this entire project. So my hope is someone watching this right now is like, they're feeling right where you were, right? And so how do they reach out to you? How can they contact you? Where's your church? Just give people
absolutely. You know what? Thank you again for the opportunity, man. That's awesome. And what you said is so critical. You said, as long as one person gets touched, that's the key, because you don't know if that next person is the next person that's going to start a big movement.
Yeah, they can light a fire for 1,000 people.
Yeah, and I call it being a planet shaker. You don't know when that one person is the one.
You know what that shit is though?
What is it?
Legacy.
Come on.
That's
beautiful, man. And so, you know, I go to Heart Revolution Church. We're in our main campus in National City. We have a campus in the Tijuana prison. Inside the Tijuana prison, we have a campus where we've seen men give their lives to God, where we've seen families come back together in a prison.
It's amazing.
Every Sunday morning, the families come in with their children and we help the prison, and we have a good relationship with the warden. So we're able to give clothes, we're able to give money, the most beautiful thing is seeing those families come together, especially prisons in Mexico are not like here.
No.
Over there, it's at another level. So to see these grown men and not judge them, but say, hey, you committed a crime or whatever it is you do, but we believe in a second chance. And even if you're not going to come out, at least your family's right there with you. So seeing that is amazing. We also have a campus in Colombia, in Bogota. So that's awesome. And, you know, right now, again, you know, it's a hard transition because of the fact of the COVID and stuff like that. But our church is going forward. We're a church that's for people. And I'm excited. You can reach us at, heartrevolution.com. We have an app, Heart Revolution app, and just DM it. And if you know, any questions that you have, or, I'm always good about asking people, if you need somebody to pray for you, hit me up. That's what I do. You know, you're a lawyer. I'm a prayer guy. I love you know that. What I mean? And, you know, I pray for you. I pray for your business. And now I'm going to pray for Bobby. So
I appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And I'm going to put links to all of this just in case anyone wants to follow. If you want to reach Oscar, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to connect dots. I'll tell you, he's one of the most sincere people. Like every time I see him, he's just happy and spreading good joy. And I think that, like you touched on at the beginning of this podcast, everyone needs to feel special. Everyone needs a connection. There are certain people that have a way of, no matter who they come in contact with, you walk away feeling special. You're one of those people, Thank man. You. That's a gift that you have, a gift from God. And I'm glad that you realize it, right? Because the world needs more of that. And so thank you for taking the time to come on today. I really appreciate you, man, more than you know. And again, anyone that wants more information, reach out anytime, because that's why we're doing this. We just want to spread positivity, spread kindness, spread love. We need more of that. So thank you again, man.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Love it. Thank you so much.